Today, I'm delighted to be meeting up with Dominic Grace, who, after a very successful long term career in a large real estate business, decided to take on the opportunity to work for himself. We've got a chance to hear from him about what it's like to start a business and go freelance in your 60s, the highs and lows and challenges and opportunities of that, and how he's shaping and designing on the back of his career equation a work environment that he truly loves and enjoys. Check it out.
You'll spend 80,000 hours at work. You're here because you want those hours to count. Hi, I'm Zoe Schofield.
And I'm Erica Sosner. A warm welcome to the Career Equation podcast. On this podcast, we take time out from our award-winning careers consultancy to share a game-changing formula to help you solve the sum of your life.
Each week, we and our guests use the career equation to explore their story so far and help them unlock the secrets of a fulfilling career.
I had a pretty long career at Savills. I pulled 37 years there, so saw it grow from, well, not exactly a minnow. And by the time I left, it had gone global and was by far and away the biggest firm of its type in the UK, and phenomenal journey, really enjoyed it. And of course, I met you on what was the pilot for a program for people at my age and stage, perhaps getting towards the twilight of their careers. And I'll be honest with you, Erica, I went to that session with you a bit sulkily, thinking, oh God, it's going to be a bit of a bore. And you were brilliant. So in the course of a few hours, you peeled off several layers of the onion, as it were. And I found it really, really useful going through that program. I'd say thank you, because it certainly helped me decide what I might do next and end up where I am today. So I left Savills just over 3 years ago, having run its residential development team for several decades, and have what I think what people call a sort of portfolio career now, helping prop tech players clamber over the very high walls of the sort of dinosaur infested real estate market, which I thoroughly enjoy doing.
Before we do that, I wanted to talk a little bit about that transition moment, because I'm sure for plenty of people, the experience of fantastic career in a really great company, I've really enjoyed it. I've been there for X amount of time. And then thinking of stepping outside of that to do something different, whether that's joining another organization, whether it's stepping out on your own, I think can be really daunting, because in many ways you haven't had to think too much. If you've got a career that's continuing to progress and you love the organization, you don't have to do too much thinking. And also you build up huge relationships. It's comfortable, and it can really feel quite scary to make that kind of transition. So I wonder if you can talk through how you managed to get from like, I've maybe outgrown here to, over here, because there's a big difference, I think, between feeling like being sort of pushed to make a decision about something versus I'm moving towards an opportunity that excites and energizes me. And both take courage in terms of the movement, but somehow the quality of it is different. So I'm interested to know about your experience of that transitional moment and how you've adjusted.
There wasn't a sort of moment per se, it wasn't a sort of Damascene conversion from being the corporate man going out on my own. It built up over time. I've been having a chat with my boss about if, as and when I felt the time was right to move on. Like a lot of people, actually, I think the whole lockdown period also was quite significant in terms of we all had to spend more time at home. And guess what? I discovered that, yes, I could work pretty effectively from home and slightly more on my own, as it were. So that was significant. But there had been just over several years this feeling that my interest started to sort of grow out of what it said on my business card at Savills, which was head of London residential development. I couldn't indulge those interests, which I now can.
Yeah, fantastic. That's fantastic to hear. And I think like sometimes when you want to do, you've seen, especially if it's innovation, you've seen something pioneering, something interesting in your field. Sometimes there is an opportunity to parlay into the organization that you're in. They're like, yes, actually, we are looking into machine learning in relation to. Sometimes that can happen and you can get the opportunity to bring it in. And sometimes it's fit for like right now within the umbrella that you're in, or at least to be able to do it as freely or with as much dedication as you want to. It requires stepping out of what's known. I know for myself, when I was working in a consultancy in leadership and enjoying it very much, I had suggested what is now Career Matters to them, saying, look, there's nobody really niching around solving this problem about what people want to be when they grow up and how they keep making good decisions in their career. And employers are telling us that they struggle with that and with not knowing what people want out of their work. And people recognize that, like, that was a useful thing to do, but as a business, they just didn't want to do it at that time. So sometimes it is, you spot the opportunity that's possible internally. Sometimes it really is necessary in order to do what you want to do and to feel that sense of, like, health and endeavor. Tell me about, like, what's the next sort of phase, stage? What's the kind of question you're asking around your career and the consulting at the moment?
Yeah, well, I'm now 3 years into my solo career. And so inevitably a pattern has emerged, but equally it's not very established either. Is there something I could do that's still sort of about me? And it's ironic, of course, here we are doing a podcast. Should I be doing podcasts? Because there's lots of them out there now. And I've got certain views about some of the ones that talk about my sector. I think, gosh, I maybe could do a bit better than that or bring a different perspective to it. Look on the back of things like politics. It's become an enormous thing these days. And every car journey now doesn't involve listening to the radio. It's listening, right, what are we going to listen to? What podcast? And of course, it's something you can do sort of on your own with others as a sort of separate annex, as it were, to one's day-to-day business, which of course can be in turn good for attracting more businesses that might want to employ one as a consultant. So I'm wrestling with that one a bit at the moment, Derek.
Great. Okay. Well, let's see how reflecting on your own career history and some of the key components of your equation might help us to define where and how a podcast might fit and how you might embellish that idea further or decide whether you're going to pursue it. So we're going to follow the career equation formula to kind of get that structure and dig that insight out of what's current and relevant in relation to your career. And then we'll see how that might inform your decision making around this. Simple formula that really says that there are 4 different buckets or components that create a thriving career. And we want to be scoring as highly as we can in all of those to really feel like we're doing exceptional work and feeling good about what we do. But in order to do that, we have to know what the criteria are, what we're measuring against. And each of us have very different criteria that matter to us in our career. Each of us has a unique equation. So we're going to look together at your skills and natural aptitudes and where you discovered those and how relevant they are to the work you're doing now. Then we're going to have a look at things you care about, passions, enthusiasms, feelings, make you feel alive and relevant and excited around your work. Then we're going to look at how do you know what you're doing matters? Like, what are you tracking around? Because that could be a great way to understand the value, for example, that something like a podcast might bring to you. And then the last is, what are the environmental factors that help you to be at your best or bring out the worst in you to really thrive? And when that environment is largely self-created now, what kind of things do you need to be mindful of to really keep yourself at your best and deliver your best to clients? We're going to kick off with this bit around skills and abilities. And I'd love you to tell us a little bit of a story about a time from your young, youthful years, childhood ideally, about when you discovered that you were really good at something.
I think mine was around sports. I was a 7-year-old in my little shorts. It wasn't long after I got there, having really not done much sport before, I realized I was pretty good at it. It was something that came quite naturally to me. I was a pretty handy sportsman young.
Being good across the field, I suspect there's skills there around sort of physical ability, but perhaps also around kind of strength, resilience, endurance, tactics. Tell me about, because I think sport is such an interesting correlation with the world of work. Tell me what you took out in terms of your quality, strengths, and aptitudes that made you a good little sportsman and always on the podium.
Well, do you know what? The difference between good came to the squash tournament one year. Guess what? And if he's listening, Jonathan Iles beat me. And do you know what? I took it really badly. Now, I can now recognize that was a great frailty on my part. I was so used to winning that when I didn't, I sort of crumbled and fell to bits. And, I remember I was distraught. And the headmaster's wife, because during the match, I'd broken my racket. I was actually quite fragile. We can kid ourselves, oh, we're so good. Well, then you get beaten.
have you taken those qualities into your working life? Have you found yourself in competitive environments, and how have you used your insights around sport in other contexts?
I think certainly to have any sort of success by any sort of measure, and I'm not just talking financial success, you've got to want to win and got to recognize the work that goes into winning and then enjoy the moment when you do. I recognize myself, I do enjoy winning for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's something really there for me about like whatever the field, striving for excellence. And the thing about like winning or losing, I always feel heartbroken like at the end of the England Spain match, and the English sitting there like staring into the mid distance, not even being on the losing side of a win lose dynamic is horrible. And I do always feel really sorry for a losing team. Um, but if you're going to have something to aim for, you have to have some way of keeping score. There has to be a way of keeping score that is keeping track with the very best, but also striving for your own sense of like, how good can I be? Even if I don't win, how good can I be? So that I'm at peace with, we really did our best here. We played our best game, whatever that looks like. And that actually takes us on then quite nicely to the second piece about passions. So tell us about the moments that have been a real sort of rush, a real sense of like pleasure and energy in your work and what they've looked and felt like for you.
I always enjoy pitching for work. I love the process. What's it going to take to win this job? And how do you present your credentials as being best able to deal with it? But also, what sort of personalities are you pitching to? What are they like? What's going to turn them on or off about what you're saying? And I like that process. And then I also liked actually delivering it. Look, it's stressful. You're under the clock. It's competitive, and you're being compared to others who did enjoy that. I recognize it in myself, and particularly, you made a point, and you can just see that the body language of the people is right. Wow, yes. When you're giving a bit of advice or opining on something, and you really feel, wow, that's you've hit the nail on the head, as it were. I've always enjoyed that.
Nice. Yeah, I love that. And listening to you talking about that preparation that you do, it's tactical as well. It's tactical, it's strategic, it's thoughtful, it's personalized. But again, it sort of speaks to a kind of natural, kind of, fun and interesting thing to do, to present ideas, to share them with people, to get them engaged in it, to see where you might be able to persuade and influence. Most people fell into their careers rather than chose them. And if you're lucky, you fall well. And you fell, in an organization, for people who may not know, that grew from something like a few hundred to 20, 30,000 in the last 30, 40 years. So it must have been an incredible trajectory. So there is also that kind of good fortune about you fall in an area where you have a natural ability, where people like you and you're good at what you do, and the business was, growing at a rate of knots, and you got to be part of that journey. So I imagine that all of those things increase that sense of pleasure and energy, working together on some of these pitches and proposals.
Yeah, no, totally. And that's sort of over laboring the winning thing. But, Savills became the sort of the winningest business. And that's great because it attracts the best people.
So you found a good home there. And then when we start measuring impact and results, what are the ways in Savills and in your time since that you found to measure what really matters to you? So I hear that getting to the goals, getting results, and absolutely in terms of like a classic sales personality, these are the kinds of things I would expect you to track. Like, did we win? Did we do a great job? How much was it worth? Did we make a good impact? Are they going to hire us again? So I'm sure that those were on your list of measurements. But what else really matters to you when you think about tracking the success of your career and things being valuable and meaningful for you?
I really enjoy now is when I hear either firsthand or from someone else who said, oh, that this person said something, that how much people in my team, or perhaps I worked with, more widely in Savills, really enjoyed working with me, and, touching and heartening to hear that they, perhaps were a bit inspired in some way or another. I had to say that is what it's all about to me.
It's pretty special as well when someone takes the trouble to say to you, I just want to catch up with you and say how much you helped me, and that this particular piece of advice or this introduction. And indeed, as you describe, you're big break came from someone putting you forward, someone attending to you as an individual, and then being asked who do you recommend and putting you forward. That was a game changer for you. So I expect that kind of passing on of opportunity, wisdom, mentoring, feels really good. That's
Yeah, it does. And look, my first boss was the most phenomenal woman at Savills. She's a bit of a legend in Savills, called Victoria Mitchell. And if anyone thinks I'm an enthusiast, wow, she was enthusiasm personified, a really dynamic and again, very driven woman who loves winning, but always did it with huge humility and compassion. And I'm super lucky to have worked under her. And she, I still often think today, if I am sort of confronted with a situation, how would Victoria have dealt with this? She's a great sort of touchstone for how you should deal with, particularly with people. She had demonstrated just enormous humility and compassion while still being super successful and liked winning.
Yeah, and that combination of kind of likability and being driven, and I think particularly for women, that's not an easy balance to strike. I think men have a little bit more fluidity about how they can exercise that. Women, it really takes a lot of skill. So to hear that she was particularly inspirational to you, that sounds like something you have on the back of that wanted to pass forward, because something that
Absolutely.
Victoria definitely would have done would be generous and encouraging to the next generation.
Managers and leaders, take note. There can be fantastic opportunities to grow whole new business lines and new revenue streams if you take time to understand your team's interests and passions. So many of our clients are astonished by the discoveries that come from career equation conversations. Simply testing your assumptions about what interests people or the direction they want to go in can really leverage more performance, loyalty, and satisfaction from them, and exceptional results for you. We've had organizations start whole new product offers on the back of having a quality career conversation. And finally, just note the importance, even all these years later, of the impact that personal attention and mentoring makes on people when they're early in their career. Dom remembers that person's name and still cares for her a lot. Consider making mentoring a formal part of your induction and growth process.
So last but not least, we talk about environment and this idea that the environment, the culture, the context in which you're in, the opportunities that you're given can make a huge difference to whether you're satisfied and thriving and really feeling like you're doing valuable work. Has there been a moment where environmentally you thought something's not quite working or it could work better, that perhaps was discouraging to your natural disposition for kind of energy and positivity and action?
Yeah, this is inevitable for anyone who sort of gets towards the end of their career. Inevitably, you have to start handing batons over, and you inevitably can feel a bit frustrated that you can't influence things because you had to step back. I've always found what I've done incredibly interesting, and whilst it can probably rather irritate other people, I am forever interested and intrigued and inquisitive. And I think residential development or housing and investment in it is interesting to a huge number of people.
Careers hack. With extended lifespans and real quality of life, retirement as mandatory has just gone out the window. There's time for you to recreate, try something new, and conduct an experiment in your career later in life. Dom's experience of moving out of long term and in house and becoming a free agent just shows us that it's never too late to begin a new career chapter that could be deeply fulfilling. Note that he's used his previous network, expertise, and knowledge as a strong foundation for his future. If you're going freelance for the first time, I recommend that this is the place to start. Learn how to work for yourself in work that you already know and love before heading off into something totally new, is my advice. And if you aren't sure that you have traction, please keep working part time to pay the bills and build up slowly. There's nothing worse than an anxious new business owner.
I mean, I think you raised so many interesting points about environment, genuine interest, something you're enthusiastic about, something you can always be learning around, somewhere where there's an opportunity to meet interesting new people and to collaborate and to think together. That kind of environment of kind of fresh, innovative, curiosity has been very important to you in terms of enabling you to really be at your best and do some great work. And is that still true? As like in what things about environment become more of a concern or more fun or an opportunity once you're working as an independent consultant that you didn't have in a large organization?
Yeah, I think I was quite lucky that I could roam, quite widely in my role at Savills, but now I can indulge those things that I couldn't do before, particularly around the sort of technology and innovation in the space, which is a bit of a curse to be interested in that, if I'm honest with you, because there's a huge amount of failure. But I think the industry is so behind all other industries in terms of embracing technology, digitalization, AI, or whatever. Super interesting. Not that I'm a very techie person myself, but I think I'm quite representative of the industry that they're trying to sell into. I can adopt the persona of sort of Mr. or Mrs. Average sort of C-suite within the real estate industry and how they might respond to whatever it is that's being pitched to them. And I really enjoy that. I also really enjoy working with the mostly young people who are trying to scale up these businesses. I really enjoy working with them.
And what about kind of the management of your time, the juggling of your projects? Like how is that different in this new world? What does a typical week or month look like environmentally for you?
Well, again, this is an interesting one, which I guess a lot of people at my age, and I'll be 65 in November, and I do work 5 days a week, but lots of people my age, some of whom would have completely sort of hung up their boots. Just there's a word of mouth thing going on now where I seem to have built up this reputation as someone who's quite useful and can open doors and have some hopefully useful insights.
Wonderful. Yeah. And it sounds like you're really enjoying it too. Let's take what we've learned and put it into the equation framework and see what comes out of it. So I'm going to invite you to fill in the gaps on a couple of things here, starting off with your name. So
Dominic Grace.
Dominic Grace, lovely. Will use my skills in. So reflecting on the conversation, what are the like 2 or 3 that you're really leveraging now and enjoying? Use my skills in.
Understanding the UK residential development and investment arena.
Mhm. And my passion for, what are the things that give you that energy and joy?
Opining, hopefully knowledgeably and usefully, on what is going on out there, but also particularly, Erica, what could happen, hopefully inspiring people to what could be done today to improve tomorrow.
2, to get what kind of results for you or to, in order to gift and support to others, or why do you do it? What's it for?
Well, particularly good question, because I could retire, tightening the belt a bit here and there and what have you, but I could. And the fact is, I enjoy it. It's a rather tedious answer and doesn't need a huge amount of embellishment, but I enjoy it, and it provides a stimulus, which we all know once you get to my age and stage, you've got to have that.
Yeah, no, I really get that. So I'm gonna call that staying fresh and stimulated and energized. And I want to add something, which is and give value. Because I've heard you say several times as well, whether it's to the younger generation, helping to mentor them in their careers, but also, of course, to clients and to, in an advisory role, you're coming with the intention of being of service to accelerate their growth, their development, their connectivity. So there's a certain generosity there that I feel like it needs its place somewhere in that impact. Does that feel fair?
Yeah, no, I think adding value, job satisfaction thing that pretty fundamental. People that likes going into my workshop and coming out with having fixed something. Right over the weekend, my son and I fixed a chair that had broken, and guess what? We took great pleasure in working out how we were going to fix it, and we came out job done.
Yeah, and so let's take a look at environment there and see whether that problem solving, troubleshooting, satisfaction sound like they're important components of the environment. What else needs to be in there?
Well, we talked about fundamental interest. Gosh, what to come up that isn't just a total cliche? Some enthusiasm again is so important, and to be able to convey that to the youngsters. How do the old hands pass on the knowledge quite so well? So I think these things are becoming more and more important now, but also sort of instilling in the younger ones some resilience as well. Again, every now and then, knuckle down doing something you really enjoy. I've laboured that point. That's the key. Find something you enjoy.
Great. So I'm going to play back to your equation and let's see what it might tell us. I, Dominic, will use my skills in my understanding of the UK residential and investment arena and my passion for opining on what's out there and what could be there in terms of the future possibilities for the space. To energize and stimulate myself and add value to the organizations I work for. An environment that is enjoyable, interesting, where I'm sharing insight, having an opportunity to communicate my enthusiasm and resilience, and where I can troubleshoot on behalf of the clients I serve works best for me.
Good.
Does that sound about right?
It does. Beautifully
Yeah.
encapsulated.
So our question then is, to what extent would a podcast align with what we've described? What's your reflection now, hearing that back and having talked a bit about what gives you that energy and vitality in the work that you're doing? Where does it leave you around the pod?
Right. Well, I'd like, and actually one of the things I feel more liberated now I've left the corporate world, is that I can say things less fearful that, oh gosh, if I say that, it might offend a client. And if, big client, be it a local authority, a developer, anyone and everyone. So I'm looking to be just, controversial for controversial's sake. But I am very keen now that I can be more open about what I say, and not worry so much about these things. So that's something I've got to wrestle with, because guess what? I've got clients as well.
It sounds like there's a lot of freedom in not necessarily representing a large corporate brand, which is going to have a very strong view on what should and should not be said. And you still have clients. And of course, you want to be sensitive and respectful and supportive of their agendas too. I wonder, one of the things that we talk about when we think about adding something to one's portfolio is the idea of piloting the micro version. One of the troubles with the podcast, and it's the reason why I haven't done it for years and years, because I was also always told you should start a podcast, is because, as you said, it's a huge amount of work and it's a real commitment. And to do it well and properly is a significant job. However, to share valuable pieces of advice and insight on your industry does not have to take the form of committing to a podcast and publishing it on Apple and Spotify or whatever. Like, might there be a way to produce weekly or fortnightly a 5-minute added value video about a point of view you've got on something that might be useful for other people, that wouldn't then commit you to being part of our podcast and all of the broadcasting, editing, and marketing that denotes, but allows for what people are asking for from you, which is, you're good at this, and you're great. You're kind of, I'm interested in your opinion on this thing, and I would like to hear you and perhaps see you too. Is that something you would consider?
Sure.
So next steps wise, what do you think you're going to do?
I've got to think about it, should I do it? Shouldn't? And also I'm going to collaborate with others on this. It's not just about me, what that might look like. There needs to be some focus. And I'm not really pretending that I, can project myself as an expert in all aspects of real estate. Paint me, I can't. But I'd love to be able to chat to others who are. And I think, dare I say, I'm quite good at being able to sort of tee up the right questions to those sorts of people.
So
let's do it.
Let's do it. And I would really say to just pile in the micro version. You don't have to have all the answers to begin. If you think I have to have a philosophy and a point of view and a brand, and you'll never begin. Whereas you have this amazing network, speaker, listener, point of viewer. What is the minimum simplest version of trying out collaborating, sharing ideas with somebody in a way that other people can access without having to worry about some of the process and platform stuff that can potentially be quite a commitment. Not to say you won't do it in time, but just pilot the micro version. What's the most fun way to do it is something we'd always encourage when people are thinking about expanding their reach on their career. Well, we are pretty well out of time. So I want to just ask you one final question, which is, I think you've given tremendous value for people who are thinking about their career and the things they might need to think about for making a leap as you have done. So I want to ask you our kind of final closing question, which is about the little Dominic who learned that he was good and who also didn't take the losing well. What advice would Big Dominic give now to that little person about how to navigate life and their career, do you think?
Yeah, good one. Find something you enjoy. And I might want to refine that to interesting, because enjoyment can be there lots of things in life. And I think I get it, but you've got to be realistic about what's a career as well, and how many other people might have the same idea. So if you can find a sector that interests you, but actually think about what you could do within it, because I mean, certainly in the real estate world, it suits any sort of personality. There isn't one type, gregarious, introverted, good at maths or whatever. There's so many facets to property. Space for everyone, and get proactive. Don't just sit back. Be a bit of flotsam and jetsam out there. Try and make things happen for you.
Thank you so much. It's so important to be intentional and to be curious. And I love that refinement of, I would add, it's not either or, it's both, that you enjoy and you are interested in within a field. Find the place where you can be exceptional. We all talk about in the career equation, the sweet spot of skills, passions, impact, environment, that it should be specific enough that it could really only be you, but there should still be enough room for creativity and exploration to find the different ways in which you can live your equation formula more and more, and with greater pleasure, enjoyment, expertise, and value add. So thank you for demonstrating that so well and so beautifully in this catch-up conversation. And if people want to get hold of you, is LinkedIn the best way to do it?
Yes, it is. Dominic Grace Fricks will take you to my LinkedIn page.
Wish you every continued success and look forward to hearing your broadcasting very, very soon.
Oh, well, thank you, Erica. And thank you again, because one of my moments would definitely be the time I spent with you at that session a few years back. So thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Career Equation podcast.
Stay connected with us on socials for more career insights, behind-the-scenes moments, and updates on upcoming episodes. And if you'd like to work with us, visit the Career Equation website or click the links in the show notes.
Remember, the Career Equation isn't just a podcast, it's a journey towards unlocking your full potential, enjoying your life, and doing remarkable stuff.
Until next time, keep solving those career equations and pursuing your path to success.
And don't forget to share your thoughts and feedback with us. Your input shapes the future of our show.
Until next time, keep solving those career equations and pursuing your path to success. This is Erica Sosna
And Zoe Schofield. Signing off.